Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Pratik Roychoudhury, President and CEO of TeamLogic IT. In this episode, they chat about what the ideal MSP candidate looks like, employee engagement, and hiring top talent throughout the Great Resignation. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kela. Over to you, Sunny.
Thank you so much for joining my podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Sunny. Looking forward to it.
Now, let's start with culture, because it takes that team, right? It takes a village to grow at this level and keep your culture strong. And you must be doing something right in terms of your culture. Can you describe your culture?
Sure. Yeah, Sunny, the best way to kind of describe our culture, I'd kind of do it through two things: our core values, and then our mission statement. I think it's the confluence of these two kind of creates the bedrock of our culture. Mm-hmm. And then I'll, talk about how do we actually execute on our culture, right? So our core values are what I call deep I. So it's DEP and then I. And it stands for, being data-driven. The D stands for data-driven. E stands for empathy. The second E stands for extended family. P stands for personal accountability. And I stands for integrity of work. So the deep I concept is kind of our core value that has been for the last, 12 years that we've been in existence. And then our mission statement is actually very simple: make fans of clients, make fans of vendors, and make fans of each other. So it's really the confluence of these two things that I would say that creates our bedrock of culture.
That's amazing way to describe it. And simplifying it with that one acronym and easy to remember. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that's so. Talent being the theme, talent being the real struggle in the channel. And I know it takes culture to start with so that you can attract and develop and retain talent so that you can scale effectively. So I know you have a very special way of hiring and retaining, and you did talk about, nurture and maintain your workplace as a strategy to attract and retain talent. So can you talk to me a little bit about that concept, that strategy that you have?
Sure. Yeah. Our as you described very appropriately, Sunny, the challenge in the MSP industry is, attracting talent. I think there is a lot of work, but it also needs to be profitable work. Otherwise it'll just deplete your staff and your bottom line. Mm-hmm. And retaining talent is actually even more difficult now than attracting new talent.
Yeah.
So, I kind of use this model of most people leave organizations not because of money. Most people leave organizations because of either their lack of engagement, not having a good boss, not building good relationships internally. And as you kind of talked about this community, I think that's very important. If you don't have this community, you always feel like you're not connected to the core, of the business, of the company. Mm-hmm. So I kind of use this model of, engagement. One of our doctrines of the management team is to make sure that every employee is engaged. So we do a lot of things. We read a book together every Friday as the whole company. Every call is a video call. It has to be a video call. So things like that we do to engage employees. And then ask them for feedback on key issues that we are facing as a management team. We will ask them for their inputs, and then we'll go back to them and tell them what we've done with their inputs. Mm-hmm. So the concept of engagement, the concept of transparency, being transparent with the employees. I share financials, I share thoughts, I share my struggles, absolute open book, so that they know that whatever we're saying, we're absolutely transparent. And they start to feel being a part of us, that, hey, the management team is not superhuman. They have problems, they have challenges, but together we're going to work through it. Investing in their growth. We launched a career planning process Actually, this year we launched LinkedIn Learning, which is a very formal training process of really skilling them up, making sure that we invest in their growth. So one of the things we talk about is when we hire someone, we say, now you have entrusted us with your growth. So we have to do the right thing for you. Being empathetic for support towards work and towards family. People have issues. People are human beings. There's something going on with the pet, something with children, something with aging parents, and how we respond to that, react to that, really what creates culture. So being empathetic to their family and to their work life. And then we have this monthly ESAT measurement. These are kind of the 5 bedrocks, if you will, that we've been pretty successful at to retain. We didn't lose a single person in 2021. Not a single person of our 40 people. We were able to retain all of them. But I believe that these were the 5 kind of things that the entire management team worked on.
So Pratik, what you have accomplished, when companies are experiencing very high attrition, and you didn't even lose a single person. That's really, really amazing. That's something so unique. And so if you have to overall reflect on this accomplishment, and you talked about empathy, you talked about more of really having that weigh-in and buy-in of the team and making sure that their growth, there is a lot of that mutual ownership, but you take it very seriously, right? So is there anything so if you have to just share one thing that people can do where it can impact their attention out of all these things, what is that one thing that they can start with?
I lead with the word empathy. Being empathetic to people and the challenges that they have. I mean, look, the last 2 years in this pandemic has tested all of us in very unique ways that we have never experienced before. We are in complete uncharted territory. There is no rule book, there is no management book, there is no self-help book that tells you, that teaches you how to deal with a pandemic for 2 years. So, we're all kind of learning as we are going, but the one central core theme that, we as a management team have really stuck to is this concept of empathy. Being empathetic to people. When someone says, hey, I have my grandfather has COVID. I got to go do something, and I got to go, travel and go take care of them. There are 2 ways to look at it. One way to look at it is, no, you're out of your vacation time. You don't have any sick time left. So you can't go, and you need to take, unpaid to go do that. The other way to deal with it is completely understand. We know what you're going through. Why don't you take work with you and see what you can put in, and the remaining time we will make up for you, right? So being empathetic, I think, is the one single bedrock. I mean, we're a service business, Sunny. I mean, all we have is people. Yeah. If we take care of our people will take care of the clients and the business. So if there's one thing I would say that I think our company has done very well on, and it's going to be in the bedrock of my management style is...
Let's talk a little bit about employee engagement or employee experience. So I know you have a very special, very unique way to engage people. And so can you talk to us a little bit about engagement?
Sure. Something that you and I have talked about before is that to me, culture engagement is really about one-on-one, right? It's not the social media posts of partying and awards, and which we do that. But to me, it's always been about making sure we understand each and every employee, where they're at. And as you said, kind of what really motivates them, what ticks them, what challenges they have day to day. So we have this methodology that, we kind of use internally. I personally talk to every employee at least once a month, if not once a week. And it's not so much about work. The discussion is not so much about work. It's really understanding what challenges are they facing. How's everybody at home? How are they dealing with, working from home? So we have this measurement strategy of, we try to measure every month happiness at work, personal issues affecting work, their relationship with their supervisor. That's very important. That's key in this. Their overall job satisfaction and their propensity to leave the organization. So we engage every single employee in almost every single problem of the business. So we kind of have this family-oriented culture that we talk about in our Friday meeting. We would always assign a problem statement to them and say, guys and gals, go spend the week and come back with ideas. This is a key problem we're facing as an organization. So now they're not just employees, they now have a say in solving some of the biggest problems of the organization. So, our monthly ESAT measurement is very key to really measuring employee engagement.
So how do you do that? Like these one-on-ones are virtual or in person? So two questions actually. One is it depending on the person where they are in reference to your residence or your workplace? And the second piece is the biggest obstacle for leaders is having time, right? That's where we normally struggle as business owners. And how do you, is there any best practice that you follow in terms of protecting your time in your calendar where that time is not taken away for other priorities?
Great question. And I'll tell you that when the pandemic started, I struggled with this trying to make time. It was a lot easier to do it one-on-one and just in passing. And now I have to actually create time. And I only do video calls. I will not do a call with my employees without a video call. So it's always, it's that engaging. I want to see your face. I want to see your eyes. I want to see how you react. And then, kind of midway through the pandemic, the most important realization I had was the most critical value that I can bring to the organization is making sure that I take care of my people. And I believe it is my job, it is my management team's job to know how our employees are feeling. And when they're not feeling well, when they're feeling low and down, that's our job to figure it out. So once that switch turned in my head, I said, well, this is the most important job I have. So everything else is secondary. So I carve out an hour every day. It's usually right after lunch from 1 to 2 that I'll pick, I have a roster. I'll pick, 3 to 4 employees that I'll talk to. And I spend no more than 10 to 15 minutes, if that. But it's the consistency of that really creates culture. It's like, if it's the flavor of the month, I do it this month and I don't do it the next month, then it's not culture. So being consistent about it is, even if you have a 5-minute conversation, consistency is what defines culture.
No, that is key. Because doing it once or twice or week or month, but when it's a rhythm, and people do appreciate those calls, especially when they come from their leader, their senior executive leadership team, that it's just, as you said, it's a feeling. At the end of the day, actually, culture is a feeling, how you feel in a company that you
absolutely
work for. And so let's talk a little bit about hiring strategies as well. I know attracting talent, hiring key people, preventing hiring mistakes, right? We all make hiring mistakes, but how can we prevent those mistakes or minimize those mistakes? So can you talk to us a little bit about what are you doing at TeamLogic that helps you attract and hire top talent?
Sure. Great question. And I think probably every MSP is trying to come up with a strategy to do that. Hiring has been difficult. We've kind of experimented with a few things. Initially, this is about 2 years ago, I used a recruiting firm, but we're hiring 8 to 10 people a year. And it's not sustainable to spend 20-25% of the annual salary on recruiting expenses. So we were kind of hamstrung there. And then we kind of came up with a modeling where we have, we've had a recruiter out of India who is doing our initial calling, initial screening. And then we have a test that we administer that the engineering team has come up with. And it's kind of a test that's more situation-based. So we're gauging the candidate's response to those situations. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean, some questions are right or wrong answers, but some of the other questions, it's about how you view life, how you view problems, and how do you view problems at work. So that test helps us a lot to kind of gauge the culture side. Mm-hmm. And then, we have kind of two more steps after that, and finalizing with the personality assessment that we do as well. But right now, the challenge is having enough people in the pipeline. Because our culture is so strong, our recruitment rate is about 5 to 7%. So we would see 100 people to get to the 5 to 7 people that we want to hire. We've always obviously increased our pay band, but again, the challenge right now is still getting enough people into the pipeline.
Yeah, that is the toughest challenge. Now, my last question, Pratik. I know you're growing, and I know you have part of your growth strategy is M&A as well, and so a lot of our partners, there's a lot of M&A activities. They're looking for strategic partners. I want to know what that ideal candidate looks like for you in terms of that strategic partnership, which, if you're looking for MSP, what that ideal MSP that you're looking, what are the, what is your ideal candidate profile when you are acquiring companies?
Great question. I always start with culture is, needs to have a very similar culture that really focuses on people, on its employees. Once we see that, everything else can be built around it, but that, synergy in thoughts and strategy of how we deal with people and how we engage people. So that's number one. Second, we're looking for anywhere from, 5 million to, 3 to 7 million in top line revenue, with obviously, strong margins. But having a good culture, a company that takes care of it, and we are geographically agnostic, meaning we can acquire anywhere in the country. And we would bring that team under the TeamLogic IT umbrella, because that's how franchising works. And then, having a strong management team, a management team that has had tenure. So I would say those two key things before all the financial considerations: strong culture and a strong and longevity of the management team.
Management team. Okay. So culture, management team, but location does not matter. Anywhere in the US is fine. So thank you for sharing that. And what are the roles that are open with you today that you're filling?
We have a couple of cloud engineers that your company is helping us fill, which I'm very grateful to. And then we have what we call account managers, who are senior engineers. We have 5 senior engineer positions open. We have 3 remote service engineer positions open. And we're also looking for an associate director to join our management team.
Okay, appreciate that, Pratik. Appreciate your time and great culture. And I have spent a lot of quality time with Pratik during our trip to India, and now working with his team. And overall, you see that when Pratik talks about empathy, he means that, and he kind of he's very intentional about creating that culture, which is very people centric, and result is there. That in this type of environment where majority of the businesses are struggling with attrition, Pratik has a really good retention rate, and that's if I have to say what is that one thing that he's doing right, it is being intentional about culture. That he's creating that culture by design and not letting it happen by default. And that is what Pratik's strength is. That if there's anyone looking for a strategic partner to join forces, or someone is looking for a great company to work for, TeamLogic and Pratik's company is a great company to consider. And thank you so much, Pratik, for coming and spending some time with me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you for having me.